Good afternoon. We're glad to see you in Moscow. What are your impressions about Moscow?
About Moscow?
Yeah.
Well, it's been my first time here, and I must say that I was impressed because I know just the iconic image of Moscow that we all know, also in Italy. Whereas I saw another part of Moscow that's much more modern, much more vibrant, and much more large of what I was thinking.
Are you going to make any kind of films here? I mean, what are the projects that you're going?
That I'm working now? No, at the moment I'm working for two projects. Those need to be shot next year, but they are mainly based in Italy for the moment and with a small part in the States. But I'm looking forward to see projects that can be made here. Even projects that can be made by the two countries only.
Do you have your own personal life experience here in Moscow that can influence your next works?
It's a bit early to say. I mean, I've been here only 1 day and a half.
Oh.
But yeah. But it's. I think it's definitely there's an impression of the city that is completely different from what I did have in mind before. And I think there is much more opportunity here. And also I found out that we, Russians and Italians, are different but also similar. So it's simple to discuss and make something together.
And the next question is it difficult for you to manage the balance in your works between making film entertaining and profound at the same time?
That's not really up to me. I'm much more a physical production person. So it's more for the creative guy and the writers and the director to find this balance. From my side, it's much more to find the right crew, the right people together to deliver what is made by the creative people.
Okay, see. And do you have any partners here in Moscow, in Russia?
No, not really, not yet. So that's something that we'll build up during this trip too.
That's great.
Меня зовут Светлана Максимченко, я генеральный директор Москино и я ответственный секретарь Московской кинокомиссии. Московская кинокомиссия была создана 1,5 года назад, и одна из ее целей – это привлечение, в конечном счете, иностранных кинопроектов в Москву. А в принципе цель Московской кинокомиссии – облегчить киносъемки для кинопроизводителей и помогать в организации киносъемок в Москве. В рамках нашей международной работы мы как раз организовали такой визит, а он состоялся не просто так сейчас, а состоялся потому, что впервые Россия стала площадкой для проведения симпозиума Международной ассоциации кинокомиссии AFCI в России. И этот форум, симпозиум, он прошел только что в Санкт-Петербурге. После чего мы ведущих спикеров этого форума привезли на пару дней в Москву. Мы хотели бы сегодня поговорить с нашими гостями, я сейчас их представлю, о том, как Москва могла бы стать площадкой для иностранных кинопроектов, то есть площадкой для кинопроизводства, именно для иностранных продюсеров, чтобы Москва наконец появилась стала точкой на карте иностранных продюсеров, чтобы Москву рассматривали для кинопроизводства, чтобы в конечном счете наш город появился в кадре больших крупных международных кинопроектов. Собственно, об этом сегодня мы поговорим. И для начала я представлю наших гостей. И начну я, конечно, с Джесс Конопля, президент Международной ассоциации кинокомиссии AFCI. И Джесс, на самом деле, единственный из наших гостей, которая не первый раз в Москве, потому что она приезжала, собственно, когда мы только организовали кинокомиссию на Московский форум культуры. И, собственно, поддержала нас сразу на международном уровне. поддержал создание Московской кинокомиссии, потому что во всем мире это такая практика классическая, что в любом мегаполисе, в любом крупном городе есть кинокомиссия, которая помогает со съемками. И это, в общем, норма. В Москве такого раньше не было, теперь есть. И Джесс, собственно, представляет эту ассоциацию кинокомиссий, в которых входит более 300, может быть, ошибаюсь с цифрами, но Джесс расскажет чуть позже, кинокомиссии со всего мира. Собственно, большинство из которых приезжали, многие из которых приезжали на синепозиум в Санкт-Петербурге. Вот Валера Купеев, который один из организаторов синепозиума, инициаторов, сегодня тоже здесь. Большое событие для России, потому что помимо тех гостей, которые сегодня присутствуют здесь, на синепозиум приезжали представители HBO, Netflix, других крупных кинокомпаний. И для них визит в Россию — это, как всегда, в общем, для многих наших иностранных гостей, разрушение стереотипов и новое представление о России, в том числе как месте для кинопроизводства. Продолжая представлять наших гостей, сегодня с нами также Джанет Валтурна, глава производства Blumhouse Productions, старший вице-президент по производству Universal Studios Кристин Карструпе, эксперт в создании киностудий, и сейчас он представляет студию Black Hole Studios Ник Смит. Марко Валерия Пуджини, продюсер, президент Panorama Films и продюсер таких картин, как «Ешь, молись, люби», «Хан Соло», «Джон Уик 2» и других. И сегодня, к сожалению, сейчас сложились обстоятельства буквально за полчаса до нашего события, что Екатерина Прочева, глава комитета по туризму, не смогла сегодня присутствовать. Тем не менее, сегодня от комитета по туризму представляет комитет по туризму Дина Ким, Дина заместитель генерального директора проектного офиса, да, и отвечает, собственно, за вопросы кино, в том числе в комитете по туризму. Комитет по туризму, вы знаете, наверное, может быть и не знаете, что был создан не так давно, меньше года назад. Новая команда, которая в том числе заинтересована в этом направлении. Наверное, я сейчас переключусь на английский. Если кто на английском не понимает, включите свои приемнички. Я хотела бы сначала... I switch to English, suggest. I want to ask you, it's your third time in Moscow. So you know a lot. And, yeah. But at first, please tell us about AFCI and actual film commissions, because maybe somebody is not, doesn't know about film commissions in general. And start with this, and then we'll continue.
Right. Okay. Hi everyone, thank you so much for having us today. AFCI is an organisation that is global but is based in Los Angeles, and we've been around for about 44 years. The goal of the organisation is really to give film commissions from around the world, and they are usually government organisations. They may report into tourism or may report into economic development or arts and culture, but their role is to develop their own domestic industry. And also, usually, by doing so, they need to attract production that's coming in from either out of state or from offshore. And we have members who are at the national level, national, federal, they may be regional or state, and they can even be local city. So quite often we find we have multiple members within one country, and we have members that come from 6 continents. And I'm really proud to say that at our 43rd Symposium, which was held in Russia, had never been held in Russia before, and went to St. Petersburg. In the audience we had commission representatives from 6 continents, so it was really great to see such a diverse range of people coming into a city. And my guess would be that 99% of them and also the speakers had never been to Russia before. So existing in there is this perfect opportunity for people to eat, live, breathe a little bit of Russia in St. Petersburg and get to understand more about what this country is really like.
Okay. And about Symposium, I want to pass few words to Val, Валерий Купеев, один из инициаторов симпозиума. Расскажи немного про симпозиум и про то, как он прошел, что это за мероприятие.
На русском или английском?
English, I think,
Okay.
yeah?
Sorry, my English is very bad. Hey everyone, thank you for inviting me. I'm a different level, but anyways. Yeah, so hi everyone, great to see some of the people who are in St. Petersburg. I see familiar faces. And, you know, so the question was, how was it?
Yeah, how was Symposium?
So you tell me, guys, how was Symposium? Okay, so that was a new experience for us. I would say it's important that the event went, you know, not in a standard way. We just, you know, tried to show Russia in, you know, diverse way. We tried to, there were governmental meetings, so government was involved, and government was very open. That was a surprise to me as well, to be honest. You know, that was a great chance for us to, you know, connect on one platform, companies from all around the world. Specifically, you see this lineup, and some of the great speakers, you know, left from St. Petersburg, and we had over 25, I guess, speakers from the biggest production houses. We have PlayStation, we have Universal, Blumhouse, Legendary, HBO, Netflix, you know, all the places. And it's great. It was a great opportunity to uncover Russia because, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions, I guess, and you know, we trying to develop that. And I would say, so this was the first step. I don't know how many steps we did. Like, obviously, it looks like the first step, but we did a lot of steps before moving there, before just started trusting us, before understanding that Russia is not. I'm not gonna say this word.
I knew that.
You knew that? Come on. Okay. Anyways, so I would say, so that was first big event. That was a first AFCI event, but there are plans to do more. We're gonna do events in St. Petersburg, in Moscow, other regions. So we're open to the dialogue with the regional governments because, say, even the speakers, when they saw the variety of locations in Russia in the comparison with other countries, they said, we want to see that. We want you to tell us more. So there will be more platforms for the upcoming several years. We're right now developing a plan, and will be more. So we work hard, you work hard, and we get there. Thank you.
And what's about incentives you're not?
Incentives, you want to say? Okay. So what do you want to know about incentives?
Just a few words.
Okay. All right, so incentives. What's important, so in Russia we say rebates. This is a wrong concept of incentives. Forget about this word. Incentives is, if you translate that into Russian, this is kind of motivation, мотивация. When you have incentives, you incentivize foreign productions to use your local resources the way you as a country or as the industry want, and it motivates the local industry growth. So Russia is introducing incentives this fall. It will be 30 to 40%. I am happy to say that we just not, you know, throwing words. We've been working with foreign consultants. Obviously, there was some Italian influence in there. And we had a brilliant conversation with Marco Valerio last night, you know, about incentives, about all that. Yeah, thanks for the beer, by the way. We announced incentives, but it's important to say that we didn't just put them out. We said to all our guests that we want to work closely on, you know, upgrading it the way it's comfortable for foreign productions, for incoming productions to work with that. It's gonna be, it's launched end of this year in test mode. My, you know, partner in arms, Eva Danilchenko is not here. Oh, you're here! Come here! Yes, say a couple of words. Can we say a couple? Can she say? Okay, go talk to her after. Go talk to her after. So we've been developing that together. But anyways, this is the development of the Ministry of Economic Development, Ministry of Culture, Russian Export Center. A little bit of us. Okay, anyways, so we're open to the conversation. You can learn more details, but the information will be public because we're putting together the website, the guidelines. Give us a little bit of time. This is going to be test mode at the end of this year. Next year is going to be full functioning. All right, so that was the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet, continuing about incentives and actually finance part. You made a lot of projects with low budget but really huge revenue. And what do you think? Are incentives critical to be in Russia? I mean, to be Russia a place for film? As it will be, is actually financial, efficiency. Yeah, financial efficiency is really critical for Hollywood companies, for production houses. Is it important?
So the company that I work for, Blumhouse, the model that we have is 80 to 90% of the movies that we make are made for $6 million or less. Finding a location to produce those movies, we don't need an incentive, generally. It helps if we have it. It means we might be able to do more of an action scene, but it's not the critical piece of why we go to a location. The critical pieces of why we go to a location are the location itself, the amount of crew and their technical capabilities, the infrastructure, and what I was explaining to Val a couple days ago was the ease of doing business through the legal system and through the finance system. Mm-hmm. So we use various pieces of software for accounting and tracking, and sometimes when we go into various locations, they might not use the same software. So we might have two accounting teams running, one that's a US accounting team running on our software, and one that's the local accounting team running on whatever software they use, and we figure out a way to integrate the two of them because they might need theirs for their reporting system to their governments, for their incentive or for their purposes, but we'll need ours for our financial system as well. So having that ease of transaction between wire transfers to the banks, how do you cross money through territories, how do you account for things, how do you have legal contracts that satisfy the deliverable requirements when we sell and distribute to a studio. Those kind of things are what make our productions run a lot smoother and our ability to come into locations and actually get something done.
Have you ever considered Russia as, location? No?
I actually didn't really know much about Russia before I came here, so now my eyes are more open to what is possible, the infrastructure that you have, the locations, the personnel, and what you have to offer. So it's great to be able to see that firsthand.
Thank you. Nick, yesterday we visited Mosfilm and Cinelab, so you saw some studios in Russia. What do you think compared to Europe, compared to US? What do you think the quality of our, infrastructure right now?
Okay, Mosfilm was impressive. Clearly, it's a very historical facility. A lot of production has happened there over the years. What particularly impressed me was the new studio that was built a couple of years ago. So the quality of what is on offer is as good as anywhere that you're going to get in the world, but actually the be-all and end-all isn't about having the number of studios at the moment. Really, this is more about attracting production by making sure that Russia is open for business and the right incentives and the right crews and the right people are in place in order to attract production, which will initially come here for locations. And I think once everything becomes more established, more people will be inclined to stay for longer, and that's when stages will be required. So what you have is excellent, but I don't think you need to rush out and build more facilities just because you're going to launch an incentive. It might happen in a few years' time, but you know, I think what you have at the moment is great. It's a great base to attract people in. The challenge is now to getting people to use things that you have on the ground and then take it to the next step in the future.
Actually, we thought about creating black plots. I mean, new places, new territories, black plots. Натурные площадки Валер, натурные площадки Black Plot. Backlots. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, backlots. New backlots in Russia, and maybe a new pavilion, because, for example, that new Mosfilm pavilion is overbooked for half a year. Actually, what do you think? Is it possible, you know, to create the new facilities with international investments, to create, to cooperate with like studios like yours, for example, or like Painwood, or?
Well, I think ultimately it is, but as I say, you know, initially I think you've got to you've got to get the country open for business and people used to coming here and experiencing what you have. And then I think these opportunities are out there to be developed in future years. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why you can't. But I think you've also got to ask yourself is, you know, is it right, do you need that relationship with whether it's a Pinewood or a Blackhall or anybody else? You know, I think you've got very strong independent national production at the moment, and that's probably what you want to develop. And that's probably what you want to get out into the rest of the world and the markets to show what Russia can actually do. And that, as much as anything else, will attract people in and lead to other partnerships.
For us, when we go into an area that doesn't have stages, we look for large warehouses that might not necessarily be soundproof, but are waterproof and are large enough for us to be able to build a set or stage a base camp in there out of the cold or something like that. So I would look for existing large structures that people can go in and film in, that may have a large parking lot near them, that are somewhat away from the city so that you're able to make a little bit of noise and not under an air path for the airlines, and use those, because the independent films by far and large will use those if there's no stages available.
Kristen, we were talking about creating in Moscow, you know, different places to film. I mean, not only Moscow, but maybe some European cities, or some, you know, views like New York or like, you know, Asia or something. Do you think it will be useful to, you know, bring some international film crews to film here, not only Moscow, but different other cities?
Yes, I wanted to thank you for inviting us here, and this week has been amazing, and as Jeanette said, it's really opened up our eyes to a new community of filmmakers that we had not been considering before, so thank you for that, it's really valuable. And the pictures that I tend to do are tentpole movies where we're filming around the world. We're still really concerned with finances, as everyone is. And so
incentives is critical for you?
They are very important. Because of the budget of the films that we're doing, the incentives are important because it allows the filmmaker a little bit more money to go somewhere they wouldn't be able to otherwise. Especially if they're visual effects driven films. So coming to a place like here where you can get multiple looks, that's really important. I'm always looking for territories where I can, you know, oh, I can use this area and shoot there for 2 weeks and it's like it's Paris. And then I can be in Moscow and I can be in the countryside and I haven't moved production at all. That's really important when you have hundreds of people that you're traveling around the world with actors and equipment and all of that, because it adds up very quickly. So finding places that you can amortize and really get a lot of looks without moving too far away it's a real big win.
Marco, you told us about Italian experience. For example, experience with bringing 150 people, international crews to Italy, and how difficult it was to make some visa process, etc. So Italy made a great, way to be a great location for international productions, for Hollywood one, for different one from all the world. So, what's the secret?
Patience, and probably I think the most important things are three things that they are expecting from us. I mean, they would like to find a trustworthy partner, knowledgeable and professional. I think trustworthy, we know what it means. Knowledgeable is more tricky because we need to know our system and then we need to know their system. And lots of times they're not the same. We are countries, the Anglo-Saxon word comes from the common law. Our countries come from Roman-based law. And just this approach from a legal point of view, you need to understand both sides if you want to put something together. Knowledgeable also from the fiscality that's different to the accounting software that they're using. And professional means that you need to train people, especially line producer, accountant, in order to understand all this. And then there is the final things, I think is the best part, is that I remember the first time that we worked for HBO was on a soprano episode at the beginning. And after that we finished the job and everybody went back. After a month or two I received a report from HBO, from Voice, they said, well, those guys in Italy were, trustworthy, but they were a good, they were able to serve the local bureaucracy in a correct way and deliver. So that's what you need to do. I mean, you need to be trustworthy, make everything by the rules and everything, but you need to deliver what is needed for the film. So knowledgeable is the first thing. Another thing I would say is that I divide the films in a film based on a location and a film that is based on a territory. We are still in the phase in which films come to Italy for the location. We are just recently start to move and be also a base, but that's a really long process and needs to have infrastructure, a pool of professional, good incentive, too many things that come with the time. The first thing is that attract the people here, work on the location, and then move on. It's a slow process.
Actually, some Russian directors shoot in Italy. Yeah, for example, Andron Konchalovsky shot in Italy.
Yeah, so, I mean, more than one director shot in Italy, I believe, in the years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I never worked with them, but I think that I arrived at the time now.
If I can just jump in really quickly, I think the notion of a film commission being the conduit between the clients and the country is so incredibly important. And what has really thrilled me about seeing what the Moscow Film Commission has done is, three of the key people who are involved are in this room, and it's you, and I know Val is involved, and it's Alexander down the end who is a location manager. So you have someone who is not a bureaucrat or purely a government official, who understands production, who works in-house to be that intermediary between a production and locations. And when you have a film commission that is empowered by a government who understands how important this business is to jobs, to hotels, it's a full economic development cycle of film, then you have a territory that's really well equipped to attract production in a better way. And I think it's really clear to us that there is a thriving domestic industry that's easy to see, and there are incredibly talented people. Main Road Post and Cinelab are here, and they have brilliant skills and brilliant equipment. So now it's about opening the doors and getting people to be comfortable with what is here and to understand what is here, so that they start to consider it as an option. And I think that's just around the corner. I mean, at the very base level, you want people shooting Moscow for Moscow. You don't want them going somewhere else and pretending Moscow is somewhere else. You want them to shoot Moscow here, and then you go from there. You want people to start thinking about setting their film here, because I know I can do it, because the people are here, the talent are here, and a lot of that will be, you know, processes that are above Moscow Film Commission. They're visas, and it's a federal government issue, and those things need to be addressed too. How streamlined is that process?
Janet, and what's your experience working with different film commissions in different regions? What's your, you know, best experience, and what you need from film commission? And also, how do you choose a local production team? I mean, how do you choose a production team in a region you never worked before?
Film commissioners are extremely important. They're the first phone call that we make when we start looking for a place to bring the production to. They'll tell us how many projects are shooting there at the time that we're looking. They'll talk to us about weather, availability of stage, you know, all of those details that start the initial conversation going on that. They'll make key introductions to people. From there, we'll ask around in the industry to see what their reputation is like, how easy it is they are to work with, what their personality is like. And without those film commissioners opening those doors and giving us those introductions, it would make our lives a lot easier, a lot harder, you know, to put the pieces together. So they're a crucial piece to us. I can say anything where I've had a bad experience with a film commissioner. They've always been very helpful. To provide links, to provide contacts, and general introductions, yeah. What they're like, and because I found that process very challenging for many years, I created a database that we just launched this week that has crew and commissioners. It has 40,000 people in it already, so you can help find people around the world and sort by various criteria on it. But that was because I was having issues with finding people, so it's crewv.com to be able to search for those people.
Kristina, how do you choose local production teams, or how do you work with local teams? I mean, how do you interview them? Or...
Well, I think like Jeanette said, you know, you start with the film commissioner, and they will usually provide you with crew lists from local productions, and then you have you know, great software portals like CrewV that allows you to check on those particular crew members, find new crew members, and that way you're not getting just one, you know, one perspective on it. But you start with the people that know the people on the ground, and that's the film commission, and they usually would also be supporting something like CrewV and making it available to all their support crew there.
Dina, will you tell us a little bit about tourism committee in Moscow, and how Moscow sees this cinema part? I mean, how can we, you know, bring some tourists through cinemas, through movies?
Excuse me, I'm trying to speak in Russian because I'm not sure about my English publicly, so excuse me, guys. Московский комитет по туризму, да, мы молодая, юная команда, можно сказать, что нам всего, даже нет еще года, но опыт наш позволяет нам участвовать и понимать, в общем, что основная цель и задача, которая стоит под этим, это, конечно, даже не создать, а пересоздать новый имидж Москвы, который, потому что сегодня стереотипная Москва, кино-Москва, это совсем другая, чем та, которую вы увидели в реальности за эти несколько дней. То есть ту Москву, которую знает весь мир через кино, это Москва, это холод, водка, балалайки и, в общем, и бандитизм, да, то есть это есть определенная совершенно имиджевая составляющая, которая на сегодняшний день не соответствует реальности. Мы, конечно, понимаем, что то, что сейчас происходит с Москвой, то, как она изменилась за последние несколько лет, даже для нас самих, для москвичей, да, это грандиозно, да, и мы хотим с этим делиться с миром, мы готовы сделать все максимум для этого со стороны московского правительства, со стороны комитета по туризму для, в общем, обеспечения этого правильного диалога между индустрией и нами, да, и городом. В То есть мы понимаем, что необходимо обеспечить многие процессы, и мы готовы быть генератором этих событий и этих действий, потому что мы понимаем, если не будет нашего большого желания это сделать в правительстве, да, в нашем комитете, то, наверное, одним производителем не справиться без этого. Вот, поэтому мы здесь в тесном контакте, и, в общем, в нашем лице вы можете увидеть больших энтузиастов, и мы верим в то, что мы делаем, и мы готовы участвовать в длительном процессе. Мы понимаем, что это не история одного дня. Да, мы понимаем, что это надо работать долго и упорно, и, собственно, мы к этому готовы. И мы открыты абсолютно.
Mark, at Symposium you were telling us a story of one city, I don't remember actually the name of the city in Italy, who became a tourism center after a few movies were filmed there. Could you tell us the story?
Yeah, Matera. But before we go to Matera, may I say something to go? Because we share something. I mean, we Italian have, and you have something in common. We have the mafia, the spaghetti, and the mandarin. You have the same mafia, the vodka, and the Bolshoi. We are not just that, you know. So we need to work on it. Matera was a particular case. Yes, we studied. In reality, we studied just because we did want to show to the government that we were needed something different. And tourism in Italy is a really big industry. So we make this research for which we found out that at least 4% of all the tourists that come to Italy choose Italy because they saw Italy on a video, on a movie, or in some place. And 4% of the tourists in Italy means billions. Much more than what we invoice with our business, I mean, at least 10 times. So it was a good opportunity. And Matera was a strange case because in 2003, there was only 16,000 tourists in Matera. Then Mel Gibson, I don't know why, chose to shoot his Passion of the Christ in that city. There is a small city, it's I don't know, 150,000 people, 200,000, even less. And 2004, the tourists in Matera doubled. 2005, they arrived to 50,000, and then they drop again because the local authority didn't have the idea to exploit these things. Luckily for them, we continue to go there to shoot. Year after year, there has been so many films. I mean, all the films that you saw about Jesus' life has been shot in Matera. And not only that, now in Matera this year they're shooting the last James Bond film. I think it's Bond's 25, I don't know where they arrived. But they make, the government, the local government, was smart enough to start to work exploiting the movie tourism, exploiting the movie industry, but making their own choice that are different. So they choose to put Matera in the market as a cultural place. Matera in 2014 was voted as participate to be the European capital of culture, and this year in 2019 Matera is the European capital of culture. Tourists last year in Matera, so 2018, 15 years after, were 614,000 from the originally 16,000. I mean, Matera, there were more tourists, 3 times or 4 times the numbers of people that live in Matera.
I think that's a wonderful example, and there are plenty of examples really where tourism really does drive the industry. And just another analysis for you: if you look at Belfast as a city, and you look at the series Game of Thrones, and prior to HBO really going there about 7 years ago, nobody really wanted to go to Belfast. I myself worked in Belfast about 20 years ago, and it was more known for the troubles that were there, the sectarian problems. And in a way that Russia has a perception problem, Belfast had a massive perception problem, and it really took the government to work with HBO to persuade them to go there. That it was a safe place and they would help them invest in facilities. But they didn't build sound stages, they trained crew. What they did is they took over an old a shipbuilding yard, and they adapted it for production. And that was all they did for the first couple of years. And then, hey, in year 3, they built 2 sound stages to support it. And now Belfast is one of the most vibrant and dynamic filming centres that we have in the UK. Cruise ships tend to come there now. Nobody wanted to ever go to Belfast. I was there a couple of weeks ago and Disney had just docked a cruise ship because everybody wanted to go on the Game of Thrones tour. And the government have helped by sponsoring with HBO a Game of Thrones tour. And you can now go to several centres all around Northern Ireland where Game of Thrones has been built. I was working with some people in the city and they told me that there was over 1 million hotel rooms booked last year as a direct result of Game of Thrones. This is what inward investment production can do for a city, and this is what it can do for Russia as well. But it's going to take years. It's going to take a good decade.
Yeah, we need to get another Game of Thrones.
Val, create a plan, create a roadmap and a path, and follow it diligently. Get yourselves out to the markets, meet people, persuade them that Russia's open for business. Get some electronic visas, get something going that just makes it easy for people to get here and experience it and stick to it, and you'll win out, ultimately.
And it is already happening. We, as part of our Cineposium, had an event we call Meet the Execs, and we had, both Jeanette and Kristen participate, but we also had, two locals. We had, Armand came and spoke, and we had Alex as well, who came, who's a Russian producer. He has a project on Amazon, a project on Netflix, and he said in St. Petersburg, in front of our crowd of film commissioners, the change is already happening in Moscow. I'm feeling a difference about how I film in Moscow now because there's a commission, there's structure, and there's order. So, this shift is already happening, and it's been like less than 18 months, and there are changes. So I think the domestic industry is feeling it now. The event has been here. There have been 2 familiarization trips of executives that have come into Moscow to see it for themselves. The shift will happen, but I do agree with Nick that it's not a case of building infrastructure. It's a case of getting that comfort level there and working with crew, ensuring you understand how deep the crew is, and then having a commission that's really well armed to go and promote all of that.
And about the crews, do you know some, companies from Russia who work in LA or in London, or have you met any, in your industry, companies from Russia, or you haven't met any, production teams from Russia who went to your office, and offered some services? So, we have a lot of production people here who just want to present themselves. Should they go to, to LA, for example, to present themselves? Or should they send some presentation of co-productions they made? Or how should they,
I think the production people travel around the world a lot. We end up on the road quite a bit. I'm gone 2 weeks out of every month to a different location. Try to meet up with me when I'm out there. You don't necessarily have to come to Los Angeles. Those are generally boring meetings in an office, and driving around LA sucks. So try and meet us on the road somewhere. It's always great to put a name with a face, and when you get a relationship going with someone, it's much easier to be able to call them and ask them questions. And if we have, a project that we want to bring here, having met you in person really makes it a lot easier to be able to take the next step further in business.
I would suggest even a delegation, and I know Val has done this once, but getting a group of companies coming in from Moscow or from Russia. You have a visual effects company, you have a production company, you have facilities, and you come and present as a united front. You're not competing against one another in the room, but you can schedule a slate of meetings, and then the executive who's sitting, like Kristen or Jeanette, gets to meet a variety of people rather than taking 5 individual meetings, and gets presented with a lot of information and can ask questions and absorb all of that. I think that is another way to do it. It saves executive time, and it just means a more well-rounded meeting and information download.
And Jess, actually everybody are interested in this incentives topic. Everybody is asking, and For example, we have a lot of journalists here, so they're asking about what will be these incentives and will it help? What do you think, in your experience?
I think finances are certainly a big part of the discussion. Maybe not for everyone. There are some people who work in in certain budget levels, and there are others who are purely creatively driven and say, my film is set in the Himalayas, I will film in the Himalayas, and nothing will prevent me. But I think incentives are very important. But I don't think you have to give everything away. I think something that is really important to consider is the cost of doing business here, because I don't think you want to sell yourself short either. If you are based on exchange rate or already a cost-effective place to be, and if your crew rates are reasonable, I think what you want is some line producers who really understand this market and what it is to budget a film, to work closely with foreign line producers so they understand how much things actually cost. Because quite often there is a perception as well that things may be expensive when they're not, or you may feel that things are cheap here when they aren't perhaps. So we do have members within our within the membership body that have no incentives, but there's always something that makes them attractive. Maybe the exchange rate is in their favor, or maybe their crew rates are cheaper, or its accommodation is cheap. There's always some positive cost element to a location. So I would say a lot of research needs to be done to determine the percentage of an incentive. I also think incentives can be calculated in very, very different ways, and with caps, without caps, with cultural tests, without cultural tests. I think the most important thing is to have a really, really clear handbook on what is and what is not included, how you qualify, if you can receive part payments, what the caps are, is there a sunset date. We've actually just released a really large report, and it's a best practices, it's a global best practices for creative sector development, screen sector development, and we looked at every region around the globe and divided the research based on a couple of different factors. Incentives were one, but we also had workforce development. We looked at infrastructure, so studios, and also this catch-all of film friendliness under which film commissions sit. And there were about 20 case studies done. So, it's Queensland in Australia and Colombia and the UK, and looked at who was doing each of these things the right way. And we also shed a spotlight on some bad practice without naming names. And it's a great document for any territory who's looking to improve in any of these sectors. And I would highly recommend anyone who wants to have a read to sort of dive in. It's quite an important and timely piece of research.
And Marco, in Italy you have federal incentives and regional incentives, and for example, you have a great success of Apulia region. Could you tell us about this Apulia experience?
Well, let's say we have 20 regions in Italy. Each region has some small things. Apulia probably is the only one that has some more structured fund, but the reality is that the real tax credit that counts in Italy is the national one. That's the heavy one. But if you go to shoot in Apulia, you can put a cherry on top of the pie, as we say, because the Apulia Film Fund itself, there is a little one, but you can try to get up to another $1 million out of there. Using a local pool, you can get up to 75% from the money that you spend for the local people, and you get another 25% on the money you spend for local vendors. So that's, of course, has been made by the Apulia region for push in order to create a small industry over there. Try to be after Rome, because they know that they cannot compete with Rome, but to have at least a secondary base in Italy in which the people can start to work. And they started years ago, and now last year for the first time they start to inquire if there was time to start to reconvert some former warehouse into soundstage, because they start to see that Italians go, not just foreign crew, but Italians too, they go there every year. I mean, there's still always 3 or 4 or 5 Italian projects that go there every year. But But may I say it's more practice because we're talking about incentive. Of course, incentives are important, but I wanted to go back to one word only that I mentioned before: trustworthy. And for me, trustworthy is not just that; is that we are the production service company. We are sort of the people are our guests, so we need to be treat them like we do normally. So of course, your guests, you want that sit comfortably, that have a good food, a good drink, that stay in a good hotel, that has a good facilities around. So you have all of this. So you're already a step ahead. You know, just but publish advertising all this. And you need to let people know that all this exists and they can be in a comfortable zone when they arrive here.
Yeah, and we already had HBO's Chernobyl filmed here. Yesterday by Danny Boyle filmed here. Jack Ryan's episode from series shooted here. So we hope they will spread the word about our locations and about our film crews who help them here in Moscow and in Russia. And if somebody will ask you about Moscow, we will recommend to consider it like as a location. Do you have questions for our guests? Let's switch to questions. Who will start? Who's ready?
У нас же есть много других совершенно интересных объектов, которые, скажем, кинокомиссии неизвестны. Вот какой этот путь приближения наших локейшн-менеджеров к иностранной компании? Потому что мы не аккредитованы в кинокомиссии, ни в коем случае. У нас даже нет профессии локейшн-менеджера, к сожалению. Вот. И для нас, как частников, это все интересует. Либо мы должны подойти к какой-то известной компании продакшн и работать с ними, либо мы должны работать в частном порядке. Вот, пожалуйста, ваш путь, как вы пойдете?
My recommendation, and it's confusing when I hear myself speaking in Russian in my ear. My recommendation is to work really closely with the Film Commission. What most commissions do is know a cluster of local location managers who are very reputable, have experience working on specific projects. So they may have a group who work on international projects, and they may have a group who work on domestic, and sometimes they may be the same group. So if Kristen had approached me as a film commissioner and she was interested in coming to film or interested in knowing what locations I had in my territory, and she was looking for libraries, beaches and a lake, I would have in-house a very detailed electronic location database. But if I felt that perhaps some of my locations weren't up to scratch, I would engage a location manager and pay them a day rate and say, I need you to scout for 3 days. Please go and find the locations, make sure you give me the contacts for every person at the location. I need all of the image. I need the Google Map tag attached to each image. And then those images are given to the commission. We put them in our database, and then I can keyword them. And then so when I do my electronic presentation for Kristen, she gets all of the latest. So I found too, when the time would come when Kristen was ready to come and physically visit, I would again engage a location manager to host that scout with me, and the 3 of us would go and physically look at locations together. So there's a lot of hand-holding, but a lot of working very, very closely. Location managers are quite critical in that conversation.
Я бы хотела здесь, вот Светлана, да, просто здесь договориться о том, что мы, как комитет по туризму, готовы инициировать этот диалог с продакшн-общественностью, на самом деле, как я не знаю, с сообществом, да, потому что действительно есть очень много участников, есть государственные компании, есть крупные, есть маленькие и так далее. Мы готовы начать диалог с индустрией для того, чтобы понять, каким образом сформировать те самые стандарты, ну как бы цифровые в том числе, да, которые могут дать вот эту прозрачность и ясность и доступность, да, потому что на сегодняшний день действительно может быть, да, как бы кажется, что к вам не подойти, да, кому-то, да, это не так. То есть мы должны, и здесь вот я как бы абсолютно готовы инициировать вот такого рода диалог, да, это очень важно.
Все мы доступны, открыты к диалогу, к сотрудничеству, и Александр Воронов вот там так скромно присел в самом конце, глава нашего подразделения кинокомиссии в Москино. Анастасия вот здесь, и многие здесь ребята тоже присутствуют, поэтому можно пообщаться сейчас после нашего мероприятия. А в целом мы всегда открыты, всегда отвечаем, оперативно открыты и для продакшенов, и для коллег, и, в общем, для всей киноиндустрии мы всегда на связи.
Можно найти этот доклад, как его можно найти, как он называется. Также я хотела бы спросить вопрос ко всем коллегам, два вопроса. Первый вопрос, что бы коллеги хотели изменить в России в подходе к зарубежным же, опять же, коллегам, чтобы они поставили, кроме того, что перечислили выше, и какие у них требования к продакшену, к российским продакшенам, с которым бы они хотели работать, какие будут требования. Спасибо.
And we have a menu item along the top that's called Best Practices, and if you click on that, it's the first report and you can get straight to it. And in terms of your question about things to change, I think it's all coming together. I think it's merely a case of coordination. It's, you know, a comprehensive, this is a big country, so there are going to have to be a lot of commissions who each look after certain territories. But each commission having a really vast location database that's not just public property but private properties as well, and working hand in hand with location managers and with facilities and knowing where the stages are and the visual effects companies, and being able to promote that, because they should be able to promote everyone. And behind them needs to be an incredibly supportive government, that when someone says, I really want to shoot in the Red Square, the commission can say, okay, I will speak to the government department that manages that. You know, one of the most complicated approvals I had to deal with when I worked as a film commission was for HBO, and it was on the Pacific. And it was a beachfront area in Queensland. It involved one federal government department in Australia, 7 state government departments, and a local council. And it was high tide and low tide and remnant rainforest and private property and digging a ginormous lake and planting palm trees, and it was a huge process and really eye-opening for me. But the commission had the endorsement of the state government to deal with all of those departments and to make it happen, and that made it a much easier process.
Well, I think you've answered that quite comprehensively, actually. No, as Jess says, I think you're on a path, and it's sticking to that path. I would say, whatever's announced on, for example, on incentives, just as one topic, just deliver what you're going to say. If you say that incentives will be paid out after 6 months. Pay it out after 6 months. Don't leave people hanging for 9 months. Whatever it is, just deliver what you promise, and that'll put you on the map.
Versus the Film Commission. And just so that how we normally approach film commissioners is they're our first point of contact. I've just got a project, I really don't know much of anything. I'm reaching out to maybe several film commissioners, and they're just the clearinghouse to get me rolling and then introduce to everyone else. So I wanted to make sure you don't feel like you're in competition with the film commissioner. They're opening the door, you're serving the feast, right? So they're helping lay out everything we want, and then we're going to be looking for the local talent on the ground that's going to really help us fulfill the vision. So it's a very good hand-in-hand relationship.
And it's not easy, actually, and they made a great way, I mean, from the scratch, but they have this film commissions for more than 10 years, but still it's complicated, as in Moscow. So I believe we'll, solve some problems, and it will be easier, but not the easiest place to shoot, actually. Moscow is a huge city, yeah.
Какие регионы в России вы считаете наиболее привлекательными для съемок? И какие фильмы вы бы там хотели снимать в Москве? Какие жанры фильмов можно снимать в Москве?
So do all the regions already? So we never know. It depends on what script comes on our desk. It changes all the time. You just never know, which is why it's a precarious business of building stages anywhere, because you just don't know. Until the script comes on your desk, you don't know if you're looking at New Mexico, London, Prague, Moscow, St. Petersburg, the Bahamas. I mean, there's no way to forward that information. It all has to derive from the script, from the story, and then we go out from there. How powerful is the director? Can the story be told? We're always looking to tell the story in two ways: the most cost-effective way and the most effective way for the story. So if shooting in one place is going to allow the director more filming days, which is really their currency, what they want is more filming days. If I can shoot 2 or 3 cities in one location and I'm not spending time and money moving crew and equipment, they can amortize that into more shooting time, and that's good. There are times when a director says, no, it has to be this cliff, wherever. And that you can't really fight. You do your best, but you usually lose. Series, I've worked in series before the advent of how television is now. And I think it's different between episodic and the Netflix, Amazon of that. I can't really appropriately address it though.
Марк, кейс Апули очень интересен. Компенсация затрат 70% это очень существенно. Скажите, а насколько увеличилось кинопроизводство в регионе после того, как начал действовать такой ребейт на уровне государства, на уровне региона, я так понимаю, в совокупности? Могут ли другие участники круглого стола оценить как-то экономический эффект системы ребейтов? И считаете ли вы ставку, которую собираются предложить зарубежным кинопроизводителям России, 30-40%, конкурентоспособной, если сравнивать со ставками в других странах? Спасибо.
Okay. Well, I just shoot last years in Puglia. By the way, I shoot in Puglia, but in the story the country was Azerbaijan. So, listen, 75% is huge, but the Apulia government are smart. How many people you find in Apulia? 10? 15? So when they start to do it in that way and pushing on that is because they know they didn't have many, but they want us to train and create some people there. So there was no industry, there was no, there was one guy that was not even a location manager, but he was looking for a place. There were PAs, that's it. Now if you go in Puglia, there are 2 or 3 really good location managers. There are some pool of more things. Some helper for grips on the electrical. I mean, they create slowly something more. That's why they put the accent on the 75% on personnel. But at the end of the day, even on a big film, you don't spend much. Probably you spend 200, 300,000 on a huge film over there. So for them it was good. So it's always tax credit, tax incentive, cash to bank, whatever you want to call it. The nice thing is that you say, we are open for business, as Jay says, you know, with something like that. But then you need to create your own. There is no one tax credit system that works everywhere. Because for us it's always the same. We need to get an incentive, but for you, the other side, is what you want to get from this incentive, where you would like to go. And that's why change every place, and there needs to be balance on what you want to achieve.
I was with the Moscow Times, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing Svetlana as well. I'm writing a story about film production in Moscow from Soviet times compared to now. And I've heard a lot of mention today about showing that Russia is open for business and open to people coming here to film and to make movies. In your experience, do you think that that's more a matter of, logistically speaking, getting here and getting visas, or is it more a challenge of public perception of Russia and what people don't have a clear idea of, like what Russia might be and what happens here? The second part of my question is, do you think recent films that have gone on to international and European success that are Russian-made films have opened film producers' mind to the fact that there can be good films made in Russia. Does that have any effect on what you see of Russian film in your own experience?
And the second, in terms of Russian films at festivals, absolutely, absolutely. I think the more people see the talent both on the screen and you know, behind, they can tell storytelling, editing, the more they see the similarity and the familiarity. So that's absolutely the case.
Exposure is really important. And for us coming here, that's a really important thing, that we can go back and communicate to the industry in Los Angeles. And I think that it's a great thing having filmmakers going globally. That's always great. It would probably be very important for Russian Film Commission, Moscow Film Commission to let themselves be known in Los Angeles, much like Ostfilm does or some of the other territories. I think that people need to know you're there in order to have you present in mind and think, oh hey, maybe we can place that there. If you're not aware of it, then you can't even place it on the table to be considered.
It's part advertising and marketing. It's an awareness campaign and keeping that in the forefront. I was unaware of some of the talent at the companies and some of the show reels that I saw and the visual effects that I saw and some of the other stories that I heard and the people that I met, I was very impressed with. I didn't realize the quantity and quality of work that was coming out of Moscow. It was something that was not on my radar.
In Moscow, we have a film production is developing. And so in 10 years, we will have a lot of challenges and so on. But what are the three main factors that we should improve from government and companies to be much more open to the world production industry? Thank you.
Visas. The speed and the efficiency of getting a visa here. I know we have the problem in our country as well, but if you want people to come here, that's a big one. The crew pool, to be able to understand who you have and the depth of their talent. The accounting systems and the legal systems.
Clear set of goals that everybody in this room and everybody involved in the industry understands, so you're communicating the same message. That, you know, we've talked about a vision of maybe it's a decade out, maybe it's longer, but everybody understands what that vision is, and you're all working to publicise and market the fact that Russia is open for business, and you're delivering and what you're saying you're going to deliver. You know, people that come here are making big investment decisions, and they want to know, they want certainty. They want to know that when they get here, everything will be delivered as promised, as discussed. And you know, once that happens, again, you will see the benefits, because people that come here will go back home and they will tell everybody else, and before you know it, people will want to come here. So look at some other cases out there. I've touched on Northern Ireland, but you know, look at, as an example in the US, look at the state of Georgia, where, you know, track back over 10 to 12 years. In the early 2000s, Georgia didn't have a film industry at all. But you go to Georgia today, and there's over 100 film stages in the state, and that's really because the state decided, actually, we were going to have some film incentives, and we were going to train a lot of people, and we were going to make it easy for people to come to Georgia and make production, and we were going to pay whatever incentive we said we were going to pay on time. And you know, Georgia now is probably, well, it's got other problems, but it has been the top destination globally for blockbuster film production and high-end television production. So I'd say analyse that case study. It took them a decade, but take a look at it, and there's some great examples. I mean, I've worked with governments around the world as well to advise them on incentives. The other thing you've got to make sure that you do is, it's all very well talking to senior levels in government, and the senior levels in government say, yeah, this is great, we're going to do this, this and this. But then they have to communicate that down to everybody else. Because if there's a disconnect between senior government and, for example, civil servants that are going to do what has been suggested will be done, it doesn't work. And I've worked in countries where the intention is to deliver at the top level, but the reality of production and boots on the ground is just nothing happens. And then before you know it, actually, everybody's gone back home and says, well, don't go there, it didn't work. So have a plan, make sure that everybody from top to bottom knows what that plan is, follow that plan, don't deviate.
You said, Svetlana, that Russia is going to adopt new incentives or rebates, whatever you call it, which will cover only foreign crews coming to Moscow or Russia. Why Russian crews are discriminating? Because it's never happened anywhere in the world to discriminate local people. It's very wrong, I think.
На самом деле в Москве разрабатывается система поддержки и локальных, сейчас надо переключиться на русский, отечественных производителей. И мало того, что на самом деле отечественные производители серьезно поддерживаются Министерством культуры Российской Федерации, фондом кино, фондом «КИНОПРАИЗВОДСТВО», и планируется также система поддержки в Москве, но здесь речь, когда идет речь о ребейтах, именно о возвратах, речь о привлечении действительно иностранного бизнеса, кинобизнеса в Россию, не только для того, чтобы, как мы говорили в начале, Москва появлялась на больших экранах и у нас кинотуризм процветал, но и, конечно, прежде всего, это экономическая мера, потому что нам важно, чтобы российская киноиндустрия росла, расти она может, будучи партнером на крупных проектах, будучи, предоставляя услуги, обучая людей и поднимая свой профессионализм. Собственно, когда мы говорим про ребейты, мы, конечно, прежде всего говорим про привлечение иностранных компаний, но это не отменяет вопрос субсидий государственных российским кинокомпаниям, просто там будет другой механизм.